That's the fridge turning on. I don't know if you can hear that. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name's Beck and I'm converting my Peugeot partner into a micro camper. In today's video, I'm going to be talking all about my DIY electrical setup for beginners that is very budget friendly. When I was researching an electrical setup for my van, it looked like every single one was hundreds if not thousands of pounds, and that was just way outside of my budget. So with a lot of research and trying to work out the cheapest way I could do it, I think I have found a brilliant hack for beginner camper van converters. If you're intimidated by the electrics, or if you've got a lower budget like me, this could be a really great setup for you. I'm going to talk about the three main components of the setup and then how they work together, as well as the pros and cons of this setup. I hope it's helpful guys and hope you enjoy. Now the first component I bought for this electrical setup was the Jackery 240 Explorer portable power station, and I got the version 2. Now I bought this right at the start of my conversion, so I have been using this throughout. I took it every day I was out working on the van just to charge my phone, or if my camera died, or even I charged the drill on it. So this has been an absolute lifesaver from the start of the conversion, but it is at the core of this setup. It can charge devices using up to 300 watts and it has USB, USB-C and a standard 3-pin plug for UK devices. This is the second smallest Jackery power station that they do, but I went for this one rather than I think it's 100, which is the smallest, because with this one you get the standard 3-pin plug, whereas on the smallest Jackery you don't, you can only charge USB. In terms of how much life the power station has got, according to Jackery on the website, it can charge a standard phone 11 times. I haven't put that to the test, but it has kept our fridge running for up to 9 hours at a time. And apart from charging the fridge, when I was using it during the conversion to just ad hoc charge small devices like phones, even the drill, cameras, things like that, I didn't have to charge it for weeks on end. So if you're only charging small devices, this will last you a long time. But the great thing about the Jackery power stations is also there's lots of different ways to charge them. So with this one, it takes 2 hours to charge from a mains plug. So you can do that at a cafe if you're stopping somewhere. You can do that overnight if you have access to a plug. It really doesn't take too long to charge from mains. You can also, however, through Jackery buy a car charging cable, and that's a 12-volt cable that will charge Jackery, and that takes 5 hours. So if you're driving for a long distance, you can plug Jackery onto charge and you'll get that free charge. And you can actually buy solar panels through Jackery and that will charge the power stations. I believe for this model it takes 3 hours for a full charge on solar. The solar panels are quite expensive, so we haven't invested in one of those yet, but after this trip we really enjoyed using the Jackery and we might get a larger Jackery, and if we did that we would definitely think about getting the solar panels and the car charging cable. Now it seems like the Jackery products are always on sale, so I would definitely wait until there's an offer around. Don't buy these full price, and I picked this one up for £169. The next component in this electrical setup that I purchased was the Alpicool 9-litre compressor car fridge. Now, when I was looking at fridges versus cool boxes, I was undecided and I couldn't tell the difference. From doing a lot of research, cool boxes will constantly use power to keep the cool box at that temperature. They're a lot more budget friendly. I think getting them from Halfords, they start around £40, but they use more battery because they need constant power to maintain that temperature. In comparison, compressor fridges use less power because they're better insulated, so it will use initially that power to get the fridge down to the temperature you want it at, but then it will actually turn the power off once it's reached that temperature, and then it will intermittently turn on and off when the temperature rises by a couple of degrees to get it back to that temperature. So although compressor fridges are more expensive than cool boxes, I found that overall they're going to cost you less money because they use less power, which means you need a smaller battery. So I went for a compressor fridge because of those reasons, and I went for the 9 litre because that was the smallest in the range. Again, these are quite frequently on sale, so I picked this up on offer for £100. I'll drop the link below. And this has been such a core part of this setup. I actually think it's been the best thing about the whole trip and the build. This has been so fantastic. To have a fridge really makes such a big difference. And the last component in this DIY beginner's electrical setup is a mains electrical kit from Go Outdoors. This is effectively an extension cable which plugs into an electric hookup at a campsite, and it comes with 15 meters of cable, so you've got plenty of room. It has 3 standard plugs on it, so it enables you to use 3 devices at once and has a much higher wattage than, say, our small Jackery. We got this one from Go Outdoors and it was £39 with the Go Outdoors card. You can also get one with a couple of USB ports on it as well for £45, but we decided to skip that because we had Jackery. So how do these 3 random components make a beginner's electrical setup? For this trip, we made sure to book campsites which had electrical hookup. So each night when we arrive at our campsite, we plug in our mains hookup kit into the electric hookup. This means that we instantly have access to almost maximum power for 3 plugs. We then plug the fridge in overnight so that that can still be running throughout the night. We make sure to charge Jackery overnight as well, seeing as Jackery is running the fridge throughout the day, so we make sure to charge Jackery every night. Then in the morning, we unhook the electric hookup and we plug the fridge into Jackery. Jackery can keep the fridge going for up to around 9 hours, we've seen at our push, but we also do like to use Jackery to charge small devices throughout the day, like phones, Kindle, watches, all sorts. So we try not to push it that long. But this effectively means that when we're at the campsite, we almost have full electric, and then in the day we have 12-volt system, we have up to 300 watts. And this has just kept us going for the whole road trip. So what are the pros and cons of this setup? Pros are it is very budget friendly. All in all, these 3 components, by making sure I got them on offer when they were on sale price, they cost around £300, and that's for a full electric setup to have both 12 volt, up to 300 watts in the day, and then full electric when you're at a campsite at night. When I was looking at full electrical setups for vans, to have an equivalent of that in one of those kits would cost hundreds or thousands of pounds. So the biggest pro with this setup is that it is super budget friendly, basically a quarter of the price of if you were going to do this any other way. Another pro is that there's absolutely no setup. If you're scared of the electrics like me, I was terrified of doing anything wrong, having to set anything up. None of these things require setup, they are all plug and play. So you don't have to worry about knowing anything about electrics, learning anything about electrics, or doing anything wrong, because they are all ready for you to go. Another pro is that this is a very upgradable and movable setup, if that's the best way to put it. And what I mean by that is, if I do decide in the future to get a proper 12-volt setup in the van, or even a full, standard, 230-volt plug-in in the van, even if I have a big electrical setup in the future, these are still items that I feel I will use. For instance, I can still use that fridge, but I can just plug it directly into a 12-volt system in the van. Jackery, like I say, even if I had a full setup in the van, I've used Jackery throughout this whole conversion. I even took Jackery to the cinema one time just because my phone was low on charge. It's an amazing backup of power, even for if there was a power cut at home, or if you wanted to go camping for the night and not take the van. It's such a great little resource. And the same can be said for the main setup, really. Even if we did have a full setup in the van, we could still take that as an extra extension cable, or if you were camping with a tent, you could take that and you would have power. So they weren't things that I felt like were going to be a waste of money if I then decided to get a proper electrical setup next year. What about cons of this setup? The first is convenience. It's not as convenient as having an official setup, ready to go electrical setup in the van where you just turn a plug on or you just put a USB cable in. There's a lot more to think about with it. You have to swap the fridge over from Jackery to the hookup each night. You have to watch Jackery's charge throughout the day. You can't be more than 9 hours away from a campsite, things like that. You just have to think about a lot more things than if you had an electrical setup in the van. Now obviously if you did have a big setup, you still have to watch things like how much battery charge you have, but it's just slightly more convenient than a setup like this, which is a lot more DIY. The second con of this setup is that it's not super off-grid friendly. Now that's not something that bothers me too much because I prefer to be at a campsite. With a van this small, we don't have toilet, we don't have a shower. You know, we need a campsite anyway. It was never an intention to try and make this van off-grid, so that's not something that bothers me. But if you have a bigger van or if you want your van to be super off-grid, think about that with this setup. One way you could improve that is by getting the car charging cable for Jackery. That would at least mean that you could charge Jackery whilst you were driving, which would mean that you could run the fridge for longer. But not having that electrical hookup in the evenings at campsites is going to limit what size appliances you can use. You can only use appliances up to 300 watts max on the Jackery. So for instance, we have a small camping kettle which uses, even though it's low watt, it uses up to 1000 watt just to run that. So you wouldn't be able to run that if you didn't have electric hookup in the evening. If you wanted this setup to be super off-grid, I would probably recommend getting a larger Jackery. That does come with a bigger price point, but again, all the same pros of no setup and, you know, if you're a beginner, it's less scary. We are considering getting a larger Jackery after the success of this trip and how great this setup has been. And I think we would look at getting the 1000 Jackery so that we could run devices like the kettle off-grid, and it would also mean that we'd have longer charge for the fridge. So yeah, if you wanted to make this off-grid, you could, but you'd have to make a couple of tweaks. And apart from that, I really can't think of that many other cons. This has been a brilliant beginner's DIY setup, especially for the cost. Like, it's been so budget friendly, like I say, a quarter of the price of what an actual setup would have been. And to be honest with you, I think the electrical setup has been the biggest success of this trip. There's been lots of other challenges, but the electrical setup hasn't challenged us once. We haven't once run out of battery, we haven't once run out the fridge not been able to run. So I would really recommend this. If you have any questions or comments, let me know below. If there's anything you think would be really great to add into this setup, let me know. We're always looking to grow this and I am just a beginner. And yeah, I would love to hear what your thoughts are on campervan electrics because they can be really daunting. Anyway, I hope this video has been helpful guys, and I'll see you in the next one.